Today, we're going to dive into the story of the single most powerful discovery in all of human history. It's about a force of nature that we as a species learned to control, and in doing so, we changed our world forever.
So, let me just ask you this. When you think about the biggest, most important invention of all time, what's the first thing that pops into your head?
A lot of you are probably thinking of the wheel, right? Or maybe the internet. And look, those are incredible, world-changing inventions. But the one discovery that made all other technologies even possible, well, that showed up thousands and thousands of years earlier.
That's right. Learning to control fire. It was the single biggest leap forward our species ever made. You could say it was the original technology that literally lit up the path for everything that came after.
But we didn't always have control. For the earliest humans, fire was just terrifying. It was something you'd only see in a chaotic lightning strike or a volcanic eruption. So the very first challenge was just getting over that fear.
The first big step wasn't actually making fire, it was capturing it. Just imagine finding glowing embers left over after a forest fire. Early humans figured out they could feed these little embers with dry leaves to keep them alive, and then carefully carry a burning branch all the way back to their camp. Keeping that precious flame going became one of the most important jobs for the entire community.
Okay, so capturing fire is a huge step forward, but it's not exactly reliable. You're still totally dependent on nature. The next massive breakthrough was figuring out how to create a flame on demand. Anywhere, anytime you needed one.
And they came up with two brilliant methods. The first one was friction. By rubbing two sticks together really fast, they could generate enough heat to eventually create a spark. The second method was striking. Hitting a hard rock like flint against something called iron pyrite created these super hot sparks that could light up some dry tinder. Mastering this wasn't just a game changer. It meant we finally had freedom from depending on nature. Now, with the ability to create fire at will, humans suddenly had a solution to some of their biggest, scariest survival problems. It wasn't just a tool anymore. It was basically a superpower.
Fire gave humanity what you could call four main superpowers, and they completely transformed what it meant to be alive.
And the difference it made was just dramatic. Before fire, humans were pretty much stuck in warm tropical climates. Afterwards, we could survive freezing cold winters. Before fire, food was tough, hard to chew, and often unsafe. But cooking made it softer, easier to digest, and it actually unlocked more nutrients, which helped our brains grow bigger and smarter. At night, we were easy prey. But a campfire? That created a protective barrier of light and heat. Life didn't just stop when the sun went down anymore. Fire gave us light to work, to socialize, and to share stories long into the night.
So once just surviving became a little bit easier, humans started to get creative. Fire wasn't just for keeping warm and cooking anymore. It became our very first engineering tool, letting us build and create things that were completely impossible before.
People figured out they could use fire to completely change materials. By carefully heating the tip of a wooden spear, they could make it way harder and way more effective for hunting. They learned that if you bake soft clay, it turns into hard, waterproof ceramic pots, which was a total game changer for storing water and food. They even figured out how to split massive rocks by heating them up and then dousing them with cold water.
But this engineering thing took a massive leap forward when humans learned how to build even hotter fires. This led to a brand new process called smelting. Smelting is when you use incredibly intense heat to melt rock and pull out the pure metals that are hidden inside, metals like copper and iron.
And this one advancement pretty much drove human history forward. We went from the Stone Age, where we used simple rocks as tools, to the Bronze Age. And why? Because we finally mastered fires hot enough. We're talking over 1,000 degrees Celsius to smelt copper and tin, which creates strong bronze tools. Then came the Iron Age, which required even hotter fires, up to 1,500 degrees to get iron out of its ore. Each age of civilization was defined by how much better we got at controlling fire.
From that point on, the ways we used fire just exploded. It wasn't just about making individual tools anymore. It was about building entire societies.
Fire's influence spread into absolutely every part of life. In farming, people used controlled burns to clear huge areas of land and make the soil more fertile. For communication, signal fires could send messages across miles and miles. And most powerfully of all, fire became the literal engine of industry.
The entire Industrial Revolution was powered by fire. By burning coal to boil water, people created high-pressure steam.
And that steam could then power these massive engines in factories, or power locomotives that could race across entire continents. It was fire that kicked off a whole new age of speed, production, and progress.
So when you step back and look at the big picture, the conclusion is just crystal clear. For thousands of years, fire was the undisputed #1 engine of human progress. Almost every major advancement our species has ever made traces its roots right back to our ability to control this one powerful chemical reaction.
And hey, don't think for a second this is all just ancient history. We all depend on hidden fire every single day. The tiny controlled explosions inside a car's engine, that's fire. The furnace that heats your home, fire. The stove that cooks your food, yep, fire. Even the electricity charging your phone probably started by burning fuel at a power plant.
So that's the story of fire, the force that took us from shivering in caves to building a global civilization. It powered our past, and believe it or not, it's still powering our present. Which leaves us with one final, huge question to think about. What force, what new discovery is going to power our future?